Rain hammered the curb as a gray cat crouched by a dented sedan, and Ash said, "Do not forget me." The car door slammed, and Mr. Dalton said, "It's just a cat," before tires hissed into darkness. The collar hit the gutter with a dull ring, and Ash said, "I remember warm hands." Sirens stitched the night like needles through wet cloth. A gust rolled fast food wrappers across the lot, and Ash said, "I will follow any light." A horn blared, and sent him skittering under a rusted fence. Neon bled across puddles that smelled of oil and salt. A dog barked far off, a warning drawn thin. Ash said, "Hunger is louder than fear." Headlights washed over his scarred flank and were gone. The storm thickened, and the street forgot his name. He pressed against cold concrete, and Ash said, "If I keep moving, morning will find me." Somewhere a window shut, and the night swallowed the sound. Dawn bruised the clouds purple, and Ash said, "Night leaves teeth marks." The street was empty, except for a tipped bin that smelled of yesterday's warmth. A jay scolded him from a wire, bright and cruel. He nosed a crust and found only rain. A bus hissed near and sent paper into flight. Ash said, "I will keep small and learn the edges." The sedan from last night did not return. He sat where exhaust once curled like a ghost. A garage door yawned and shut with a hollow click. He studied the open world and the places that pinch. Hunger pulled him toward the alley's dark throat. A man shouted at no one, and the sound broke. Ash said, "Today I mapped the safe shadows," and he slipped between dumpsters that smelled of salt and iron. The alley yawned like a throat lined in metal, and Ash said, "Doors that eat and never give back." A city worker dragged bags, boots squelching in the runoff. "So now I am doing, on the night in a wing to the Jewish world the cassette craned, I'd see." He banged the bin and made thunder in a narrow sky. The noise folded Ash into a shadow with claws. The worker muttered about rats and hours, and metal bit metal. Ash said, "I will be gone before eyes find me." A bottle rolled and chimed its thin ring. Water fell from a broken pipe and stitched a cold curtain. The worker kicked cardboard and cursed the smell. Ash traced the drip line and slipped behind a crate. The thunder moved on, and the alley exhaled. He padded toward the smell of old chicken and hope. By noon, the rain thinned to a nervous mist, and Ash said, "The sky is tired of crying." He found a dry sill behind a shuttered shop. Heat leaked from the wall and told him to wait. A dog passed with a woman and did not bark. The woman glanced at him and kept moving. Ash said, "Look and forget. That is safer." He licked the rain from his fur and tasted the road. A fly sketched circles in the humid air. Somewhere a door chimed, and the street sighed. He watched a sparrow hop and chose not to chase. Ash said, "Saving strength is a kind of courage." He settled into the quiet and counted breaths. Evening arrived with gold at the edges, and Ash said, "Light remembers what people forget." Across the street, a window glowed like a small hearth. A woman lifted a folded blanket and held it to her face. The room behind her was neat and too quiet. Ash said, "Warmth is a door I cannot open." A kettle steamed and clouded the glass. She wiped a circle and stared at nothing. Traffic hummed like distant bees. Ash tucked nearer the stoop and tasted dust. His belly argued with the silence. He said, "If I wait long enough, a kind night might find me," and the last light slid off the bricks. Morning stretched with a pale sun that broke through gray clouds, and Ash said, "Light tastes softer than hunger." He padded along cracked sidewalks where children once played. A tricycle rusted in the weeds, its paint flaking like old memories. A bird lifted from the gutter and startled him into shadow. He sniffed at wrappers that held no food, only oil stains. The world hummed with distant engines and locked doors. Ash said, "I walk these streets, but none belong to me." A curtain twitched as if eyes watched, then fell still. The cat paused at a yard where a bowl sagged in the rain. His belly pinched tighter, and his steps slowed. Ash said, "My story is quiet, yet it beats louder than I can carry." The street bent away, and so did his hope, yet he kept walking into its spine. The alley smelled of fried oil and smoke, and Ash said, "The air feeds lies." A cook opened the back door of a diner and tossed scraps into a bin. Grease-smeared bags landed heavy, but not near him. He crept forward, tail low, heart stuttering with each hinge squeak. The cook shouted back inside and laughed, unaware of hungry eyes. Ash said, "Kindness thrown away is still enough." He clawed open the bag and licked sauce that stung his tongue. A rat darted close, teeth bared, and he hissed, sending it away. The cook slammed the door, and the alley folded back into silence. Ash said, "This feast is not mine to keep, only to borrow." He swallowed quickly, each bite echoing as if stolen. The alley held its breath, and the cat curled in shadow. A playground sagged beneath time's hand, and Ash said, "Laughter once lived here." The swings groaned in the wind, their chains squealing against rust. He climbed onto a low platform, paws slick with dew. A child's shoe lay half buried in sand, small and forgotten. Ash sniffed it, then curled beside it as if to borrow warmth. The slide shimmered faintly, peeling paint catching weak light. Ash said, "I dream of hands that lift instead of leaving." A crow landed on the slide and cawed sharply, scattering silence into echoes. He startled, then stayed, choosing not to run. A breeze rattled the merry-go-round and spun it 1 inch. Ash pressed tighter into himself, and the playground exhaled sorrow. The rain began again, fine as threads, and Ash said, "The sky weeps where I cannot." He darted beneath a bus-stop shelter, dripping onto cold steel. A woman clutched her coat and glanced at him with soft eyes, then looked away. Her phone rang, and her words rushed past his ears like water. Ash said, "I am too small for your story." She shifted her bag closer, shielding food she would never share. The bus roared near, spraying his paws with dirty water. Doors opened, and she stepped in without another look. He blinked at the fading red lights, chest hollow. Ash said, "Every door closes before I can touch it." The shelter dripped louder, and he pressed into the corner. Evening stretched thin across rooftops, and Ash said, "Dark comes sooner when you are alone." He found a stairwell, where warmth lingered in brick. He curled there, tail shielding face, while windows above flickered with laughter. The scent of food drifted past, too high to reach. He listened to clinking plates, and imagined their echoes were for him. Curtain lifted, revealing a child who pointed. A voice pulled the child back, curtain falling like finality. Ash said, "The world sees but does not stay." He pressed his scar to the wall as if it could heal. The night deepened, swallowing the sounds, and he closed his eyes against hunger. Ash limped along the market street where voices echoed sharp, and he said, "Crowds are storms with no shelter." Stalls spilled color, but none for him. The smell of meat clung to air yet stayed out of reach. A vendor raised a broom when he drew too close. The bristles struck near his scar and he yowled. A child laughed and pointed, the sound piercing. Ash said, "Pain is louder when it is witnessed." He darted under a cart stacked with bruised fruit. Boots stomped around him, indifferent, rushing past. A dog barked from a leash, straining teeth at his scent. He pressed to cold wheels until breath steadied. Ash said, "Even streets turn cruel when hunger leads." Afternoon shadows deepened, and Ash said, "Walls close where hope should open." A narrow alley caged him when 2 boys blocked the exit. They tossed pebbles, laughing at his flinch. One shouted, "Get it to run!" The stones cracked against metal, sparks echoing. Ash darted left but found wire fencing. His paws scraped concrete as another rock grazed his ear. He hissed, fur bristled, but their laughter grew. Ash said, "Cruelty wears young faces too." A bottle shattered near his tail, glass scattering like teeth. He leapt onto a bin and vaulted over, claws skimming rust. Behind him, their voices blurred, but fear clung sharper than sound. The shelter loomed like a cage of promises, and Ash said, walls with doors still locked. A worker carried a net, his eyes tired, but grip steady. Ash prowled near the edge, too hungry to flee yet too wise to trust. The gate clanged, echoing like iron teeth. The worker muttered, another stray poor thing, and bent low. Ash hissed, back arched, tail stiff. He darted sideways, but the net brushed fur. Panic clawed his chest as the gate shut behind. Ash said, freedom shrinks with every hand that reaches. The worker sighed, not cruel, yet unmoved. The shelter's light hummed harsh and white, no warmth at all. Inside the kennel rose, the air stank of bleach and fear, and Ash said, voices stacked in cages still ache. Dogs barked with throats raw, their cries rising like thunder. He pressed against steel bars, ears flat. Across from him, a kitten mewed weakly, ribs showing. Ash met its eyes and saw himself small again. The worker walked past, clipboard in hand, eyes weary. He said, not enough space, not enough time. Ash said, even hope is rationed in here. The kitten curled tighter, trembling in silence. Ash pawed the bars, desperate to reach, but the gap stayed cold. The room hummed with buzzing lights, heavy and endless. Night thickened around the shelter and Ash said, dreams come chained here. His belly growled as he curled into straw that smelled of bleach. The kitten whimpered once, then fell quiet, breath shallow. Ash pressed close to the bars until his fur snagged. He said, if I cannot escape, let me guard you. A dog barked again, then fell hoarse. The worker's footsteps faded into office doors. Silence swelled heavy as stone, broken by distant thunder outside. Ash closed his eyes, hunger twisting, but ears alert. He whispered to the kitten with no sound, only warmth. The storm broke, rain hammering the roof, as the shelter held its prisoners. The shelter doors opened to morning light, and Ash said, every dawn feels borrowed. A new worker entered, carrying a soft blanket instead of a net. Her eyes lingered on the kitten, then shifted to him. She whispered, you look like you've been fighting too long. Ash pressed against the bars, wary but searching. The worker crouched low, her expression gentle, her hand still. Ash said, a touch can wound or mend, but I cannot tell which. She slid the blanket into the cage and left it there. The warmth seeped into the straw, and for the first time, Ash did not move away. Kitten crawled to the blanket and sighed. Ash closed his eyes, choosing to trust a little. Later, the woman returned with a clipboard, whispering to another worker. Ash said, words decide fates behind paper. The man muttered, not enough room. Some will not make it. The woman's eyes hardened as she said, then I'll take responsibility for these two. Ash blinked, chest thumping with a strange hope. The kitten mewed weakly, voice nearly gone, but her hand stroked its head. Ash said, her voice builds a bridge stronger than steel. The man shook his head, tired but yielding. Papers shuffled like thunder in quiet holes. She unlocked the cage with care, lifting the kitten first, then meeting Ash's eyes. Ash stepped forward, not away. The carrier door clicked shut, and Ash said, freedom looks like another cage, yet something feels different. The woman placed the kitten beside him, their fur brushing. He did not hiss. Instead he pressed closer, scar against softness. Outside, the shelter door banged open to sunlight. The woman whispered, you're coming home with me. Ash said, her words carry weight that feels like belonging. The carrier swayed gently, not harsh like the nets. He heard the other animals bark and whimper, fading behind them. For the first time the air smelled of possibility, not bleach. The kitten purred faintly, and he let his eyes soften. The road ahead glimmered. The car hummed steady as she drove, and Ash said, this moving box feels softer than the last. He pressed against the mesh, eyes watching streets blur. Houses slipped by, each with stories he would never know. The kitten curled asleep, tiny breaths against his scar. She glanced at them in the mirror and smiled, whispering, "You're safe now." Ash said, "Safe is a word I've never believed." The hum of tires was a lullaby against his chest. The scent of her sweater filled the air, warm and human. Rain tapped the glass faintly, softer than storm. Ash rested his head against the carrier wall and blinked slow, as if trust had weight he could finally carry. They arrived at a small house with ivy curling up its bricks, and Ash said, "Doors can close or open. This one feels different." She carried them inside, where the air smelled of warmth, not bleach. A fire glowed in the hearth, soft crackling, filling silence. She laid the carrier down and opened the latch slowly. The kitten stepped out first, stumbling toward the rug. Ash hesitated, then followed, paws sinking into softness. She whispered, "This is your home now." Ash said, "Her words are roots planting me in soil I thought barren." The room glowed with amber light, shadows gentle instead of cruel. He pressed close to the kitten, and for once, did not look for escape. Night settled heavy, and Ash said, "Peace always feels fragile." The house hummed with quiet, until sudden pounding fists rattled the door. The woman stiffened, voice trembling, "Who is it?" A harsh reply came, "Your stray belongs to me." Ash bristled, fur rising, scar burning. The kitten whimpered and crawled behind him. The door shook under blows, wood groaning. Ash said, "The past finds us even in safety." The woman's hand shook as she reached for the lock, then pulled away. The man outside barked, "That cat is mine, and I'll have it back." Ash hissed, crouching low, eyes blazing. The fire crackled louder, as if warning of what was coming. The door cracked open, splinters flying, and Ash said, "Every wall can break." The man shoved inside, face shadowed, eyes cold. He snarled, "That's my cat, you thief." The woman stepped back but raised her voice. "No, he was abandoned." Ash lunged forward with a growl, teeth bared. The man kicked out, boot grazing fur, but missing. The kitten screeched, tail puffed, eyes wide. Ash said, "I will not run this time." The woman shoved the man's chest, shouting, "Leave us alone." He staggered but grinned, rage burning. Ash circled low, ready to strike again, body tense as coiled wire. The room trembled with fear and defiance. The man grabbed for Ash, fingers clawing, and Ash said, "Hands once left me, now they will not take me." He raked claws across the man's arm, a sharp cry following. The kitten bolted under the couch, tail disappearing. The woman shouted, "Get out!" Her voice cracked but held steel. The man swung again, rage twisting his face, but Ash darted aside, quick as a shadow. Ash said, "Fear makes me faster than fury." He leapt onto the mantel, eyes glowing in firelight. The man cursed, clutching his arm, blood staining his sleeve. The fire snapped, sparks rising like defiance. The woman's eyes blazed, a mirror of Ash's fight. The man staggered, clutching his arm, and Ash said, "Even cruelty bleeds when faced." The woman reached for the phone, shouting, "I'm calling the police." Her voice rang with strength that filled the room. The man cursed, backing toward the door, spit hitting the floor. He growled, "You'll regret this." Ash leapt down, standing between him and the woman, fur raised high. Kitten peeked out, eyes round, trembling. Ash said, "I guard not just myself, but the fragile beside me." The man yanked the door open, rain streaking behind him, and fled into the night. Silence crashed in, broken only by the kitten's small whimper. Rain hammered outside as silence returned, and Ash said, "Storms pass but scars remain." The woman knelt, tears streaking but smile soft, whispering, "You're safe now." She stroked his scar gently, no fear in her hand. Ash leaned into her touch, eyes closing. The kitten crawled out and pressed against them both, tiny purr trembling in the quiet. Ash said, "Belonging is not given, it is fought for." The fire glowed steady, its warmth wrapping the room. Outside, Thunder rolled away into distance. The woman whispered again, "We're family now." Ash's chest eased, and for the first time, he believed her words. The night no longer hunted him. Morning broke with golden light spilling across the quiet street, and Ash said, "A new day can taste like forgiveness." The woman stood by the window, coffee steaming in her hand. Her eyes softened as she watched the rain-washed world outside. Ash lay curled on the rug, Scar glinting faintly in the sun. The kitten batted at a stray thread, small purrs rising. The house felt alive in its stillness, filled with a peace no storm could steal. The woman whispered, "We begin again." Ash stretched his body slow but unafraid, and turned toward the light. He said, "The longing is not loud, it is steady." The world outside moved on, but inside, time held gentle. The woman prepared breakfast, the kettle whistling low, and Ash said, "The air carries warmth I once thought lost." The kitten followed her steps, tail flicking with curiosity. Plates clinked softly against the counter. She leaned down and placed a small saucer of milk, whispering, "For you." Ash approached slowly, nose twitching, ears tilted. The kitten lapped eagerly, tiny tongue splashing. Ash said, "Care tastes strange after hunger." He bent low and drank, eyes flicking to her kind face. The room hummed with quiet joy, no fear hidden in the corners. The scar across his side no longer felt like a chain. Later in the small garden, the air smelled of earth and rain, and Ash said, "The ground remembers storms, yet still grows." The woman knelt to plant herbs, hands dark with soil. The kitten chased a butterfly, stumbling with clumsy leaps. Ash perched on the stone step, tail curling, watching. Birds sang overhead, their notes crisp in sunlight. She glanced back and said softly, "This is where we heal together." Ash blinked slowly, chest easing. He padded forward, brushing against her arm, leaving fur on her sleeve. Ash said, "Roots dig deep when hearts allow it." The garden exhaled, green and alive. Evening settled with the scent of wood smoke, and Ash said, "Darkness is no longer my enemy." The fire flickered steady, throwing warm shadows across the walls. The woman curled on the couch, book in hand, her eyes soft when she looked down. Ash rested on her lap, his scar hidden under her touch. The kitten nestled against his side, purring like a tiny drum. The house sighed with quiet, every corner filled with belonging. The woman whispered, "You are safe, my loves." Ash said, her words build a shelter stronger than walls. The night outside rumbled faintly, but inside, there was only peace. The storm returned outside, thunder shaking distant skies, and Ash said, "Storms will always come, but I am no longer alone." The kitten startled, pressing close, and Ash wrapped his tail around it. The woman pulled the blanket tighter over her shoulders, smiling faintly through memory's ache. The fire burned steady, stronger than the rain's voice. Ash said, "Safety is not the absence of fear, but the presence of love." Lightning flashed against the window but did not reach inside. The kitten purred against his chest, the sound steady as a heartbeat. The woman whispered, "We're home." And for once the word felt true. Dawn painted the sky with streaks of rose and amber, and Ash said, "A new sun does not erase scars, but it warms them." The woman opened the door to the garden, her breath visible in the cool air. The kitten bounded forward, clumsy joy lighting its steps. Ash followed slower, tail high, eyes catching fire in the morning glow. Birds filled the branches, their voices carrying promise. The woman whispered, "Go on, this is yours too." Ash pressed his paws into the soft earth, feeling roots beneath. He said, "The world that once pushed me away now waits for me to claim it." The garden sparkled with dew, alive as hope. The kitten chased its shadow across the stones, and Ash said, "In innocence, there is strength." He watched, steady as a sentinel, every twitch protective. The woman knelt with a small flower pot, her hands pressing soil gently. She looked at him and murmured, "We plant together now." The sun broke fully, casting long light that gilded his fur. Ash stepped closer, his scar catching golden glow like a badge. He said, "Pain becomes proof of survival, not chains." The kitten tumbled, rolled and rose again, fearless. The garden sang with quiet resilience, its soil holding both endings and beginnings. By midday the house hummed with warmth, and Ash said, "Walls no longer cage, they cradle." The kitten slept curled on a windowsill, sunlight striping its fur. The woman read softly in her chair, her lips moving like lullabies. Ash stretched along the rug, his chest rising slow, tail flicking lazily. The world outside moved, but here time stilled. She glanced down, whispered, "Home feels fuller with you." Ash blinked, slow as a vow, amber eyes glowing. He said, "Home is not a place, it is who stays beside you." The scar along his flank felt less heavy, as though healed by presence, not time. Evening fell with violet skies, and Ash said, "The day bows tonight, but peace stays." The woman sat on the porch, tea steaming in her hand. The kitten clambered onto her lap, batting at her sleeve. Ash leapt lightly beside her, brushing against her arm. She whispered, "You are family now." Stars blinked awake overhead, cold but distant. Ash pressed close, ears flicking to every sound, but no fear followed. He said, "I was abandoned, but I am not lost." The garden glowed under lantern light, its stillness wrapping them whole. The air was cool, but love burned steady and warm. Night deepened with stars scattered endless, and Ash said, "The sky holds scars too, yet shines." Inside the fire dwindled low, its glow painting gentle patterns. The kitten slept, nestled against his side, breath steady. The woman pulled a blanket across them both, whispering, "Rest easy, my loves." Ash blinked slow, chest heavy but full, tail curling protectively around the kitten. He said, "I am no longer the cat who was left, I am the one who stayed." The house sighed into silence, warm as memory, deep as promise. The night outside stretched eternal, but inside, love stood unbroken.